Did you know that according to a 2009 study at the University of Sussex, that reading just 6 minutes a day can decrease your stress by up to 68%? So that makes it a perfect reason for diving into my cozy November reads this month. Just a little fact in case you need an excuse for why you should dive into some cozy November reads like I'm going to. Today, I'm diving into my November TBR with a cozy twist. As I work through the magical readathon prompts, I'm going to do my best to select books that not only fit the prompt, but are as cozy as possible. Because I don't know about you, but I am so ready for the cozy fall vibes. So if you're curious on what books I chose that might help me catch up on the magical readathon so that I can participate in late fall 2024, make sure you stick around. I don't know about you, but for me, November can be a really hectic time with holiday prep around the corner and all of my end of year projects piling up at work. Not to mention that it's an election year here in the US. We're not going to talk about it. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, and I have definitely been feeling that way recently. So this November, I'm all about choosing books that are going to give me those cozy vibes and maybe help me relax just a little bit. But there is a little bit of a twist. Getting these cozy vibes while also fitting magical readathon prompts so that I can catch up has been a little bit of a challenge. And then if you add sticking to my budget so that I can do things like bake and buy Christmas presents, that pretty much leaves me with just the books that I already own in one way, shape, or form for me to choose my TBR from. So let's see if I can create a perfectly cozy TBR with those restrictions. Also, how do you like my new filming setup? I really like it. Of course, there are a few books that I have zero control over this month because I am in 4 book clubs. So here are the books I know I'm going to be reading for book clubs. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Never Pray to the Gods That Answer After Dark. France, 1714. In a moment of desperation, a young woman named Adeline meets a dangerous stranger and makes a terrible mistake. As she realizes the limitations of her Faustian bargain, being able to live forever without being able to be remembered by anyone she sees, Addie chooses to flee her small village as everything she once held dear is torn away. But there are still dreams to be had and a life to live, and she is determined to find excitement and satisfaction in the wide, beckoning world, even if she will be doomed to be alone forever. Or not quite alone. As every year on her birthday, the alluring Luke comes to visit, checking to see if she is ready to give up her soul. Their darkly thrilling game stretches through the ages, seeing Addie witness history and fight to regain herself as she crosses oceans and tries on various lives. It will be 300 years before she stumbles into a hidden bookstore and discovers someone who can remember her name, and suddenly, everything changes again. So let's talk about why this book might be considered cozy. So this book I've heard is incredibly atmospheric. Just the fact that, the premise takes place in a bookstore, at least for who she's going to be remembered by, that automatically gives me cozy vibes. I've also heard that this book is very introspective, and introspection, kind of slows down the pace, thus giving a more cozy feel. And then I've also heard that there is a romantic subplot, and romance for me is definitely a comfort cozy genre. I've read several books by V.E. Schwab now, and I will say they are almost all hits for me. Vicious was a 5-star read for me, and I actually bought a physical copy to keep on hand of that book. Her stuff tends to be a little bit darker in tone, which doesn't kind of naturally lend to the idea of cozy vibes, but I'm a person that I don't really care how dark a story gets, but I do prefer a happy ending. And the third reason I'm excited to read this book is I've heard great things about it across the book community. I've also heard some not great things about it as far as, representation, but I want to read it and form an opinion for myself on that front. The next book I'll be reading for my roommate's book club is See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Barrett Bloom is hoping college will be a fresh start after her messy high school experience. But when school starts on September 21st, everything goes wrong. She can't switch out of her Physics 101 class even after being humiliated by the awkward guy sitting next to her, and she botches her interview for the college paper. At a frat party that night, she accidentally tips over a tiki torch and sets the place on fire. She panics and flees, and when she realizes her roommate locked her out of their dorm, she falls asleep on a couch in the common room. The next morning, Barrett's perplexed to find herself back in her dorm room bed, no longer smelling of ashes and crushed dreams. It's September 21st. Again. And after a confrontation with Miles, the guy from her physics class, she learns she's not alone. He's been trapped for months. While her attempts to fix her timeline fail, she agrees to work with Miles to figure out what's going on. They start skipping their classes in favor of the library and research trips that take them into the unexplored underbelly of the university and across state lines. As Barrett starts to fall for Miles, the two of them must find a way to grow and change alongside the shifting fabric of the universe. But the one question they can't answer is what they'll mean to each other if they finally make it to tomorrow. So I've heard that this book has really cozy kind of friendships and a romantic relationship that reads as pretty cozy as well. I've also heard that it has like a really nostalgic setting, and nostalgic for me can kind of play really hand in hand with like cozy vibes. And then of course there's supposed to be really great witty banter, so I'm looking forward to that. That being said, I am a little sick of time loop stories. I've been reading a lot over the last few months, which if you've been watching my content, you would realize that, and I'm a little over this trope. However, when we were picking books to read for the next 2 months at the book club, this was recommended by one of our friends who is doing a master's dissertation on kind of time loop stories. And this was the book that she said was her favorite of all the books she read for her dissertation. So from that perspective, I am excited to read this book. All right, let's head back to the magical readathon. So I am currently in the middle of my fall 2023, or rather autumn 2023 reading challenge for the magical readathon. At the time of recording this TBR, I have already technically reached what I have to reach for the alchemy prompt, since my calling in the readathon is an herbalist. However, because there's one more ranking, the perfectionist in me is like, just get that distinguished class. And so the prompt for that is turning silver into gold. And the prompt for that is to finish a series. So I chose Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. Maria's one-night stand, the thick-thighed, sexy Viking of a man she left without a word or a note, just reappeared. Apparently, Peter's her surly God of the Gates co-star, and they're about to spend the next 6 years filming on a desolate Irish island together. She still wants him, but he now wants nothing to do with her. Peter knows this role could finally transform him from a forgettable character actor into a leading man. He also knows a failed relationship with Maria could poison the set, and he won't sabotage his career for a woman who's already walked away from him once. Given time, maybe they can be cooperative colleagues or friends, possibly even best friends, but not lovers again, no matter how much he aches for her. For years, they don't touch off camera, but on their last night of filming, their mutual restraint finally shatters, and all their pent-up desire explodes into renewed passion. Too bad they still don't have a future together, since Peter's going back to Hollywood while Maria's returning to her native Sweden. She thinks she needs more than he can give her, but he's determined to change her mind, and he's spent the last 6 years waiting, watching, wanting. His shipwrecked Swede doesn't stand a chance. So I would consider this book cozy because it's got kind of a remote island setting, which makes me think of vacations and relaxing. So naturally, that's pretty cozy. Also, I've heard this has a really good found family trope, and as a plus-size woman, I always really appreciate books and find books kind of comforting that have body positivity and self-acceptance as a theme, which of course, all of Olivia Dade's books pretty much do. If you've been following my content for a while, you would know that All the Feels was a 5-star read for me and was one of my favorite books of 2021. I want to say 2021. I read it right after receiving my ADHD diagnosis, and the main male character in that book suffers from pretty severe ADHD symptoms. So it just really hit me on an emotional level as well, which a lot of romance books don't. Also, this whole series has like really geeky vibes, and as a geek who writes fan fiction, which is a major theme in book 1, I appreciate that. So overall, I'm just really excited to finish this series. So the other mandatory class that I had to take for my herbalist calling was the class Restoration. To get an ordinary rank, I had to induce sleep, and the prompt for this is to start a book before bed. That shouldn't be too difficult, as pretty much all of my reading nowadays has been happening right before bed. But for this prompt, I chose My Happy Marriage Volume 4 by Akumi Agitogi. Since I want to avoid spoilers if you haven't read any of these before, I'm going to give you the summary for Volume 1 right now. Considered nigh worthless for having failed to inherit the superhuman powers of the bloodlines into which she was born, Miu Sayamori lives her days unwanted and unloved. Her stepmother and her very own father have little time or affection for her, and Mio must suffer being treated as a servant by her half-sister who, unlike Mio, is blessed with the unusual powers of their blood. Ultimately seen as nothing more than a nuisance and a drain on the family wealth, Mio is packed off to the Kudo house as a bridal candidate for its heir, Kyoka Kudo. Whispers abound about the Kudo clan, the most powerful in all the land, but will the allegedly cold and cruel house into which Mio aims to marry prove much warmer than the family she left behind? So I will admit, I find this series very cozy. However, if you find familial abuse triggering, this would not be a cozy read for you. But because this series does focus a lot on Mio's personal growth and healing from her trauma, I find it pretty cozy. And of course, as stories like this tend to have, it's got a really good found family trope again, and it's a slow burn romance. Well, it's kind of a slow burn romance. It's mainly Kyoka being absolutely smitten with her and Mio having no idea. So in that way, it's a slow burn romance. But slow burn romances for me are like my favorite cozy romance vibes. My roommate and I binged this anime when it first came out on Netflix, and I just loved it. However, as I mentioned when I read Volume 3, we're starting to get a little bit more behind the scenes stuff that we don't get in the anime. So I'm excited to see where the manga goes from this point on. But overall, this series is just so cute, and arranged marriage or marriage of convenience tropes are one of my favorite romance tropes. The next task for Restoration is learning about relocating pain. And the prompt for this is that I have to read a book and read it in a different spot every time I pick it up, which this is probably going to be a pretty big challenge for me because I pretty much only read in 3 places: my wingback chair, my bed, or right here at my computer desk if I'm doing sprints. So my solution for this is maybe I should just read the book all in one sitting. That would count, right? For this prompt, I chose 30 Nights with the Billionaire by J.M. Snap. Regina Newman lived a solitary life, hiding her scars and past. She lived a simple life with no living family members and maintained a routine work schedule. But when a storm stranded her in a hotel with another passenger, her life changed forever. A cruel game between her heart and mind would keep her searching for the truth. Benjamin Cross, the hardworking CEO of Cross Industries, was used to getting what he wanted. However, there was one thing that he couldn't control: his severe insomnia. That all changed when he accidentally fell asleep beside a stranger. Sleeping was his ultimate vulnerability, and if this woman could cure it, he knew he had to keep her close by his side. When they blur the lines between work and pleasure, what consequences will arise? Is it purely physical attraction or something deeper? Is Regina simply a sleep aid for the wealthy tycoon, or is there potential for something more between them? So here are the ways I think this might be cozy. I think that this is a wish fulfillment romance, which I kind of see all billionaire romances kind of fitting in that wish fulfillment genre. I also have heard that this has pretty good opposites attract chemistry when I was doing some research on it. And you know, I love good banter. It makes me smile and laugh, and thus is cozy to me. And I was really intrigued by the premise of the emotional vulnerability and growth that we might see in our hero here with the insomnia storyline. I'll be honest with you, I had never heard of this book before picking it for this TBR. I picked it up in a Stuff Your Kindle event, and when I organized my Kindle books by title, this was first, so that's why I picked it. That insomnia trope does appear in one of my fan fictions, so it's obviously a trope that I enjoy, so I'm curious to see how this book pulls it off. For my distinguished rating in Restoration, which again, I don't have to do, but I'm going to because I can be a little bit of an overachiever, that task is to do some memory tests. The prompt was to use a random letter generator and then pick a book that's title starts with that letter. So I used this wheel online. And I got the letter C. So I chose Competitions by Sharon Green. This is book 2 in the series, so I'm going to give you the book 1 synopsis once again, in case you didn't see it in the last TBR video. In a world of magical adepts, every 25 years, the 5 greatest talents must be brought together. For only this powerful union of strangers can prevent the prophesied return of the evil ones who enslaved the land. As one, they must stand against the odious treachery of past masters and confront a fearsome depravity that hungers for their world. So that doesn't really sound very cozy, but this series, I do know, has really good found family vibes, so that's cozy for me. And if you're like me and read as a form of escapism, that fantasy adventure would definitely do that. And since I've read the first book recently, this series is going to be fresh for me, so I'm excited. It also is another book that I can knock off of my physical TBR because that's been a goal for me. And if you didn't catch it in my last TBR video, this series was a favorite of one of my best friends growing up. So it, again, kind of gives me that nostalgic feeling when I pick up these books. So if I finish all of these books that I've mentioned so far, then I have finished the Autumn 2023 Magical Readathon prompts, which means that I can go back to adventuring. From where I'm at, I could choose to either go on a date or sign up for an advanced inscription class. Since I'm demisexual and celibate, I picked the inscription class, which means that I need to read a dark academia book. So I chose The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. Again, since this is not the first book in a series, here's the summary for book 1. The Alexandrian Society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity, are the foremost secret society of magical academicians in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams. Only the 6 most uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. When the newest candidates are recruited by the mysterious Atlas Blakely, they are told they will have 1 year to qualify for initiation, during which time they will be permitted preliminary access to the Society's archives and judged based on their contributions to various subjects of impossibility, time and space, luck and thought, life and death. 5, they are told, will be initiated. 1 will be eliminated. The 6 potential initiates will fight to survive the next year of their lives, and if they can prove themselves to be the best among their rivals, most of them will. Most of them. Alright, again, this doesn't sound super cozy, but when I think fall, I think school starting, which makes me think academics, and dark academia definitely has those cozy fall vibes. And in a lot of dark academia, the characters kind of show growth through studying and introspection, and that makes me think cozy. And dark academia, by its nature, also tends to be a little bit more philosophical. So again, slower atmosphere and thus cozy. So I read the first book a while ago and really enjoyed it. However, my sister did not.
I hated it so much. I did not like the pacing of the book. I didn't like any of the characters in the book. I thought the world was really interesting and the writing was really good, but like what she chose to write about at any given time, like what scenes were included, I found to be a strange choice. Sorry, my dog's...
Yes, Peggy, hi, I see you. Hi, yes, hello. Any other words?
More power to the people who like it. Those people aren't me.
And I definitely want to see what happens based on the ending of book 1. If you're looking for some more thought-provoking reads, then make sure to check out Mount TBR from last month. I'm going to kind of scooch over here. These books will get you thinking in ways that cozy November reads just can't. Let's see what story tomorrow brings.